The first thing I saw that evening was fire jumping inside the small metal basin behind our house, and my heart almost left my body. I did not even know where Uncle Chuka got the fire from. One moment, the backyard was quiet. The next moment, bright flames were licking old brown papers like they were hungry. I shouted his name before I even understood what was happening because the fire looked angry, like it wanted to climb out and chase somebody. I ran closer and my voice shook as I asked him what he was burning. That was how the whole trouble started. As I stood there staring at the fire, my mind went back to how the day began. It was a normal day, the kind of day you forget easily. The sun was hot, the breeze was dry, and I was inside the kitchen washing beans for moi moi. Nobody expected that by evening, our quiet uncle would carry old letters outside and set them on fire. Nobody expected that our peaceful compound would turn into a place of shouting and confusion. But let me tell you how it all started from my side. I had been inside the kitchen since morning. I remember hearing small noise from my window, like someone shifting metal. At first, I thought it was one of the children looking for bicycle parts or playing rough play again. I ignored it, but when the sound came again, louder this time, I wiped my hands on a towel and went to check. From the back door, I saw Uncle Chuka holding a bunch of old envelopes tied with a rope. His face looked different, like someone carrying heavy pain under his skin. Before I could ask him anything, he knelt beside the basin and poured kerosene inside. I stood there in shock, watching him strike the match and drop it in. The flame rose up fast. It was too fast for a man that normally thinks about everything before he acts. This was not small cleaning or New Year arrangement. Something was wrong. I rushed out and shouted for him to stop. My voice carried so loud that even neighbors looked over the fence. The letters were already catching fire, turning black at the edges. He did not look at me or say anything. He just picked another envelope and pushed it into the flames. My heart beat hard in my chest. This was not normal. This was not the uncle I knew. The same man that used to fold unwanted paper neatly before throwing it away was now burning things like someone chasing demons from his life. And then, as I stepped closer, something happened that made my legs weak. A sudden wind blew across the compound, and one half-burnt envelope flew out of the basin. It landed near my foot, and when I bent to pick it, I saw a name written on it. A name I had not seen or said for more than 20 years. A name that carried plenty sorrow and secrets in this family. That was the moment I understood that this fire was not just fire. Something bigger was hiding inside it. Something that was coming back to face all of us, whether we liked it or not. When I held that half-bent envelope in my hand, my body felt cold, even though the fire was still burning hard beside me. The name on it pulled me far back in time, back to a season my family tried to bury like a dead goat. I stared at the handwriting, and it looked too familiar, too neat, too soft. It was the handwriting of my elder sister, the one we stopped talking about many years ago. The one that left this family with anger and tears following her like shadow. I felt my fingers shaking as I held the envelope because I knew something terrible had pushed my quiet uncle to bring out those letters. Before I could gather myself, the children ran out from the corridor, shouting at each other to stop pushing. When they saw the fire, they started shouting again. Auntie Neka came out next, tying her wrapper and complaining that the smoke was entering her nose. She asked me what was happening, but when I pointed at Uncle Chuka, her eyes opened wide like she had just seen a spirit. She asked him if he had lost his senses, but he did not answer. He only kept feeding the fire with the old letters, one by one, like a man that had already made up his mind about everything. I bent down slowly and picked up the envelope again. Part of it had already burnt away, but the name was still shining clearly. My sister. The woman we pushed away with our own hands.
The woman who tried to love this family, but we did not let her. The woman who loved my brother-in-law before my family broke both of them apart. That name brought back memories like flood water rushing into a room that has no door. I looked at Chuka, and I remembered how he used to sit under the mango tree every evening writing letters. He never told us who he was writing to. We only saw him licking envelopes and hiding them inside his small metal box. My mother used to say he was wasting his time, that no sensible girl would marry a man that never shouts or fights for what he wants. She said he was too gentle for his own good. But now, as I watched him burn all the letters, I wondered if gentleness had been killing him slowly inside. The fire kept rising. The smoke curled into the sky. Neighbors started gathering by the fence, whispering to each other. They asked if we were fighting again, because our compound was the type that liked to hide trouble until it exploded. I wanted to ask Chuka to stop, but the way his shoulders were shaking told me that his heart was breaking inside his chest. I saw small drops fall from his eyes and disappear into the fire. Something painful was finally coming out of the man who had carried his pain alone for too long, something he could no longer keep inside. As I held the half-burnt letter tight, a strong fear wrapped around me like a cloth. I knew the rest of the family would soon know the truth. I knew this fire would bring out secrets we all tried to forget. And I knew that whatever was coming next would shake this family in a way we were not ready for.
The moment I stepped closer to the fire again, I felt something inside me tighten like a rope pulling my chest. Chuka's face looked older than I had ever seen it. The flames made shadows dance across his cheeks, and for the first time in many years, I saw regret written on his face as plainly as day. I tried to speak to him, but before my words could come out, Auntie Nneka snatched the half-burnt letter from my hand and looked at it. Her mouth opened, but no sound came. She only stared at the name like she was seeing a ghost return to collect a debt. The children sensed that something serious was happening, and one by one they became quiet. Even the neighbors who had been talking too much lowered their voices. It was the kind of silence that carries weight, the kind that sits in the middle of a family and refuses to move away. I walked closer to Chuka and asked him to explain what he was doing. He did not answer. He only shook his head slowly, as if he was arguing with someone inside his own mind. A single tear dropped from his chin into the fire, and the flame hissed softly, like it was swallowing his pain. Then I remembered something from long ago, something I had pushed deep into my memory. My sister, the one whose name was on the burnt envelope, had loved Chuka in a way that made her glow. She used to smile whenever she heard his footsteps near the compound. But our family did not like her for him. They said she came from a stubborn household. They said she had too much mouth. They said she was not humble enough. Every week, my mother found a new reason to push them apart. I remember the night everything scattered. My sister had returned home crying. She said Chuka had stopped replying to her letters. She said he avoided her eyes whenever he passed her on the road. She said someone in the family had told him to leave her alone if he wanted peace. After that night, she left this house like someone running from fire. She went to live with a distant cousin, and from there her life carried her far away. We heard small stories about her here and there, but none of them stayed long. As all these memories came back like rain beating on metal roofing, I looked at Chuka and understood why the fire was burning so hot. He was not only burning letters, he was burning guilt. He was burning years he could not get back. Auntie Nneka stepped forward and grabbed his arm with force. She asked him if the letters were really from my sister. This time, he answered with a small nod. She asked him how many they were. He pointed at the basin. Almost half of them had already turned to black ash. That was when he finally spoke. His voice was low and cracked. He said he had kept the letters for many years. He said my sister wrote to him even after the fight, even after leaving home, even after the family refused to let them talk.
She wrote begging him to stand with her. She wrote telling him she was ready to start a life with him. She wrote telling him she was still waiting. He told us he wanted to reply. He told us he wanted to run after her. But every time he tried, someone in the family reminded him that she was trouble. They said he deserved better. They said she was not meant for him. He listened, he stayed quiet, and soon shame covered him like dust. He did not know how to answer her anymore. When he finally found the courage to look for her, it was too late. The letter he received last week told him she had died, and the small box of old letters returned to him from her relatives carried all the words he never replied to. Hearing this broke something inside my chest. The fire kept burning, but now it felt like all of us were standing inside the heat. Our silence, our pride, our judgment, our stubbornness, we had all helped in creating this pain. And as I listened to Chuka talk, I knew this fire was only the beginning of what the truth was about to do to us.
When Chuka finished talking, the compound felt too small to hold all the things sitting heavy in the air. Nobody moved. Nobody coughed. Even the fire seemed to calm down, burning lower like it was also listening. My legs felt weak, so I lowered myself onto the small wooden stool beside the wall. I could not understand how we had lived so many years beside this man and never noticed he was carrying a wound inside him. We thought he was just quiet by nature. We did not know he was quiet because he was trying not to break. Auntie Neka held her wrapper tightly at the waist as she paced back and forth beside the basin. She kept shaking her head like she was trying to chase away the truth. She said all of us thought we were protecting the family. She said we believed we were saving him from heartbreak. But we did not know that the same thing we were trying to prevent was exactly what we caused. She looked at me with eyes that were wet and confused, as if she wanted me to share in the blame. And she was not wrong. I remembered how my mother used to talk about my sister, calling her stubborn and difficult. I remembered how we all believed it without checking. I remembered how easily we followed the family's voice and refused to hear my sister's own side. When she left, we told ourselves she would come back. When she did not, we said she wanted to prove a point. We said many things to make ourselves feel better. But now, standing here watching her letters burn, I knew we had simply pushed her away. Chuka bent down and picked another envelope from the ground. His hands shook so badly that the letter almost slipped out. He looked at it with eyes that carried both love and sorrow. He said he wrote to him every year on his birthday. He said he even sent him a small photo once, but he could never gather courage to open it. He kept everything locked in his box, hiding it like a sin. He said he told himself he would go to her one day, but one day never came. The children sat on the steps quietly, hugging their knees. They looked scared, like they were watching a family fall apart right in front of them. Neighbors whispered again, some saying we should stop the fire before it spread, others saying we should let him finish whatever he had started. When the wind blew again, it carried ashes across the backyard. Small black pieces of paper floated in the air like lost birds. One of the ashes landed on my leg, and when I brushed it off, it left a dark mark. That mark felt symbolic, like a reminder that all of us had been part of the mistake. I asked Chuka why he decided to burn everything instead of reading the letters one last time. He said reading them would kill him more. He said he did not want to see the words she wrote, knowing he never replied. He said the letters were the last pieces of a life he wished he had lived. Burning them was the only way he knew to let go. Auntie Neka knelt beside him and held his wrist. For the first time in my life, I saw her speechless. She looked at him the way a mother looks at a child who has been wounded. She told him she was sorry. Her voice cracked and tears fell from her eyes, landing near the basin, mixing with ash. It was a rare thing to see, because she was the type that always believed she was right. The sky was slowly turning darker. The compound carried a strange heaviness like the beginning of a storm. I realized something painful as I watched Chuka drop another envelope into the fire. I realized that the person who had been most loyal to this family was the one we hurt the most. And as the last pieces of the letters burnt, we all knew that after this night, nothing in this family would ever return to the way it was. The fire was almost dying when Chuka stood up slowly, like a man who had carried something heavy for many years and was just learning how to straighten his back again. His face looked washed out, tired, older than its age. The flames were now small, licking the last bit of ash at the bottom of the basin. The whole family stood around him like people waiting for judgment. Nobody wanted to be the first to speak because we all knew our words would fall inside the silence like stones. I watched his hands as he wiped his face. Those hands had always been gentle, always helping, always working, always giving. Yet, we never noticed they were also hands that had been shaking under hidden pain. He looked around the compound, not with anger, but with a kind of quiet sadness that made my chest tighten. He said he could not continue living the way he had been living. He said he was tired of carrying the weight of our decisions. He said the family had controlled him for too long and he allowed it, but not anymore. His voice was calm, but every word entered the air like hot metal. He said he was done shaping his life to please everybody. He said he would not stay in this compound forever just to make anybody comfortable. He said he wanted to start again, even if it meant starting from the bottom. He said he had lost the woman he loved because he listened to us, and he refused to lose himself too. When he finished, nobody spoke. It was Auntie Neka who finally broke down first. She covered her face and cried hard, the kind of cry that shakes the shoulders. She kept saying she was sorry. She said she did not know her words were heavy enough to change a man's whole future. The children looked confused because they had never seen her like that. Neighbors who were still watching from the fence began to step back slowly, giving us space to face ourselves. I felt tears gathering in my own eyes. I thought of my sister, how she waited and wrote and hoped. I thought of how she must have felt receiving silence instead of love. I thought of how we let our pride ride her out of the family like she was nothing. The guilt pressed down on me like a load of wet clothes. Chuka bent over the basin one last time and used a stick to scatter the ashes. He watched the grey dust drift into the wind, and I knew he was watching the last part of his old life fly away. When he straightened up, he said he would travel soon. He did not know where yet, but anywhere that was not here. He needed space, he needed air, he needed to breathe without feeling the eyes of the family on his back. I wanted to beg him to stay, but I knew it would be wrong. We already held him down for too many years. This time, we needed to let him go without pulling him back. So I simply stepped forward and touched his arm gently. It was the only thing I could do. He gave me a small nod, then walked past all of us, heading toward his room. His steps were slow but steady, like someone walking into a new life. The compound remained silent even after his door closed. The fire was out now. Only smoke curled into the evening sky. The smell of burnt paper still hung in the air, mixing with harmattan breeze. I looked at the ashes and felt something shift inside me. The truth had finally come out. The secrets were gone, and the empty space left behind was painful, but it also felt like a chance to start again. That night, after everyone had gone inside, I remained in the backyard alone. I watched the smoke rise and disappear, and I knew that a chapter had ended in this family. A chapter filled with pride, silence, and mistakes we pretended not to see. What was left now were lessons, hard lessons, painful lessons, lessons written in letters that never reached the heart of the man who needed them. And as the last smoke vanished into the sky, I prayed silently that wherever my sister was, her spirit would see the truth and forgive us.